My beloved child, I need you to breathe, right now. Before your mind rushes to judgment, before you dismiss this as manipulation, before you let fear or resistance build a wall between you and what heaven is trying to say, just breathe with me. This moment is not what you think it is. The urgency you felt, that pull that made you pause, that wasn't fear trying to trap you. That was your spirit recognizing something. And I need you to understand something clearly before we go any further. Heaven does not close names. God does not erase children. The Father does not withdraw love based on whether you watch a video or scroll past a message. That is not how divine love operates. But here is what is true, and it's important you hear this gently. There are moments when heaven positions truth directly in your path, not to threaten you, but to interrupt a trajectory that was leading somewhere you don't want to go. This is one of those moments. Not because you're in danger of losing salvation, but because you're in danger of missing an awakening. And awakenings change everything. Stay with me. Don't let your guard go up just yet. Because what I'm about to share with you may feel uncomfortable at first, but by the end, it will feel like relief. You've been carrying something heavy, haven't you? Not a physical burden, but a spiritual one. A sense that something is off. That prayers feel like they hit a ceiling. That doors you've been knocking on remain shut, while others seem to walk through effortlessly. That provision feels delayed. That relationships feel strained. That your own thoughts feel louder than God's voice. You've been interpreting this as punishment, as distance, as evidence that maybe you're not favored, not chosen, not seen. But what if I told you that what you've been experiencing isn't rejection? What if it's redirection? What if the reason certain things haven't moved is because something needs to move in you first? My dearest child, Archangel Michael is often mentioned in Scripture as a protector, a warrior, a guardian of God's people. But his role is not to instill fear. His role is to bring clarity in moments of confusion. And right now, there is confusion swirling around you. Not confusion about God's existence, but confusion about your position. Confusion about whether you're walking in alignment or just walking in circles. That confusion hasn't been accidental. There are forces, seen and unseen, that benefit from you staying unclear. Unclear people don't move forward. Unclear people second-guess every decision. Unclear people give their power away without realizing it, but clarity is coming, right now, in this very moment. And clarity always feels urgent because it disrupts what was becoming comfortable, even if that comfort was slowly draining you. Stay right here. Don't you dare miss this next moment. Because what comes next could unlock years of stagnation in a single realization. You see, the enemy of your soul doesn't need to destroy you to win. He just needs to distract you long enough that you forget who you are. He needs to delay you long enough that you start believing delay means denial. He needs to discourage you just enough that you stop pressing in. And he's been using the same strategy for generations. It worked on the Israelites in the wilderness. They had the promise. They had seen miracles, yet they wandered for 40 years, not because God forgot them, but because they forgot who God said they were. They let fear, doubt, and complaint become louder than covenant. And an entire generation missed their inheritance, not because heaven closed on them, but because they closed themselves off from heaven's instruction. My beloved child, you are not wandering by accident. You have been circling the same mountain, facing the same obstacles, replaying the same frustrations because something in you hasn't shifted yet. Not your effort, not your sincerity, something deeper, your belief about what you deserve, your belief about whether God is truly for you or just tolerating you. Your belief about whether breakthrough is possible or just a concept for other people. These beliefs operate beneath the surface. They don't announce themselves in your prayers. They hide in your reactions, in your choices, in the way you settle for less while calling it patience. And heaven is not okay with you settling anymore. That's why this moment feels urgent. Not because God is angry, but because God is ready. Ready to move you out of the holding pattern, ready to release what's been waiting, ready to shift atmospheres. But here's the part that requires your participation. God will not force clarity on you. He offers it. And this moment right now is the offer. Stay with me because this next truth could change your entire trajectory. Many people think spiritual warfare is dramatic, loud, obvious, but the most effective warfare is subtle. It's the thought that says, "This won't work for you." It's the feeling that whispers, "You've already tried and failed." It's the pattern that keeps you surrounded by people who drain you but never pour back. It's the delay that makes you question whether God even hears you anymore. These are not random. These are strategic. And Archangel Michael's role, spiritually speaking, is to help you see the strategy so you can counter it. Not with fear, but with awareness. Not with paranoia, but with precision. Right now, as you're reading these words, something is shifting in the spiritual atmosphere around you. You may not feel it yet, but it's happening. Resistance is breaking. Fog is lifting. Doors that were sealed are beginning to crack open. But here's what you need to understand. This shift didn't happen because you stumbled onto this message. This shift is happening because your season is changing. And this message is confirmation, not cause. Heaven has been preparing this moment for longer than you realize. Now the question is, will you partner with it, or will you let doubt talk you out of it before it fully manifests? Don't scroll. Stay right here. Because in the next part, I'm going to show you exactly what's been blocking you and how to remove it without struggle, without years of therapy, without needing to figure everything out on your own. You've been waiting for a sign. This is it. In the Bible, there's a moment when Joshua is standing before Jericho. The walls are massive. The city is fortified. Logic says it's impossible. But God gives him unusual instructions. March around the city. Don't speak. Just walk. Do it for 7 days. And on the 7th day, shout. Not before, not when it feels right. When obedience aligns with instruction. And the walls fell, not because Joshua was strong enough to push them down, but because obedience activated what heaven had already prepared. My beloved child, you've been pushing against walls that were never meant to be pushed. You've been fighting battles that were never meant to be fought with force. You've been straining in your own strength, wondering why breakthrough feels so exhausting. But what if the issue isn't your effort? What if the issue is your approach? What if heaven has been waiting for you to stop trying to prove yourself and start trusting the process? Stay with me. This matters. There are walls in your life right now. Walls of limitation. Walls of resistance. Walls that have kept you from relationships, opportunities, peace, provision. And you've been told that if you just pray harder, work harder, believe harder, those walls will come down. But they haven't. And that's left you wondering if something is wrong with you. Let me say this gently but clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. What's wrong is the narrative you've been believing. The narrative that says breakthrough comes through effort alone. The narrative that says if it's not happening, you're not worthy. The narrative that says delayed means denied. Those narratives are lies. And they've kept you circling the same mountain for far too long. But right now, in this moment, those narratives are being dismantled. Not because I'm saying they are, but because truth is more powerful than lies. And when truth shows up, lies lose their grip. You're beginning to see clearly. And clarity is the first stage of breakthrough. Don't you dare miss this next moment, because I'm about to tell you what's been blocking you, and it's not what you think. Many people assume their blockage is external. A person, a situation, a lack of resources, but most blockages are internal. They're agreements you made, often without realizing it. Agreements with fear, agreements with unworthiness, agreements with the belief that you have to earn what God freely gives. These agreements operate like contracts in the spiritual realm. And until they're broken, they give the enemy legal access to delay, distract, and discourage. Now listen carefully. Breaking these agreements doesn't require a ritual. It doesn't require a special prayer language. It doesn't require you to do anything except recognize the agreement and revoke it. And that's what's happening right now. As you stay present, as you keep reading, as you let these words settle into your spirit, old agreements are being identified and broken. You might even feel a release starting to happen, a lightness, a sense that something heavy is lifting. That's not emotion, that's spiritual reality. My dearest child, there's a verse in Hosea that says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge," not lack of faith, not lack of effort, lack of knowledge, knowledge about who they are, knowledge about what belongs to them, knowledge about how the enemy operates. You've had faith, you've had effort. What you've lacked is clarity about the agreements you've been unknowingly honoring. But that changes today, right now, in this very moment. This is why this message felt urgent. Not because heaven is closing on you, but because heaven is opening for you. And openings require response. When a door cracks open, you don't stand outside analyzing it forever. You step through. That's what this moment is asking of you. A step, not a giant leap. Not a complete transformation overnight. Just a step of agreement with what heaven is revealing. Stay right here, because the next part is where partnership becomes practical. And partnership is what activates provision. You see, God rarely moves in isolation. He moves in partnership. Even Jesus, fully divine, operated in partnership with the Father. He said, "I only do what I see the Father doing." Partnership, alignment, agreement. This is the key to sustained breakthrough, and partnership often begins with a simple act of obedience. Not obedience out of fear, but obedience out of trust. When you partner with heaven, you're saying, "I see what you're doing, and I want to participate." And participation looks different for everyone. For some, it's a shift in perspective. For some, it's a change in environment. For some, it's a decision to invest, to give, to sow into what's feeding their spirit. Sowing is not about earning favor. Sowing is about staying aligned with flow. Just like a farmer doesn't plant seeds to manipulate the harvest. He plants because he understands that planting is how growth happens. When someone chooses to support, to partner, to give during a moment of clarity, they're not buying a miracle. They're agreeing with the movement of heaven. And agreement accelerates what's already in motion. This is why many people, when they encounter a moment like this, feel a pull to respond. Not because they're being pressured, but because something in them recognizes good soil. And when you recognize good soil, planting becomes natural. My beloved child, I'm not here to manipulate you. I'm here to remind you that you have agency. You have choice. You have the ability to partner with what God is doing or to passively observe and hope it works out on its own. Passivity rarely leads to breakthrough. Partnership does. And partnership can be as simple as saying yes to the next step heaven is showing you. For now, stay present. Because in the next section, we're going to talk about what happens after agreements are broken, about the restoration process, about how provision begins to flow once blockages are removed, and about how to sustain breakthrough without falling back into old patterns. Don't move. Don't let distraction pull you away. Your next season is on the other side of this awareness. Stay with me just a little longer, not out of obligation, but out of expectation, because what's about to be revealed could be the missing piece you've been searching for. There's a moment in Scripture that often gets overlooked. It's found in the book of Exodus when God tells Moses to speak to the rock and water will come out. Moses had done this before. He had struck the rock and water flowed. But this time God's instruction was different. Speak, don't strike. Moses, frustrated and tired, struck the rock anyway. Water still came, but Moses lost something in that moment. He lost the privilege of entering the promised land, not because God was petty, but because obedience to the new instruction mattered. The method that worked before wasn't meant to work forever. Seasons change, instructions evolve, and clinging to old methods in a new season creates consequences. My beloved child, this is where many people get stuck. They're using old strategies in a new season, praying the same prayers that worked years ago, operating in the same patterns that once brought breakthrough. But heaven has moved. The instruction has changed, and they're frustrated because what used to work isn't working anymore. This isn't punishment. This is invitation. Invitation to listen freshly, to move differently, to trust that God is doing something new, even if it doesn't look like what you're used to. Right now, you're in a new season. You may not have realized it yet, but you are. The delays you've experienced weren't wasted time. They were preparation. The doors that closed weren't rejection. They were protection. The relationships that shifted weren't loss. They were realignment. And now, heaven is ready to release what's been held in reserve, but it requires you to move differently. Stay right here. Don't you dare miss this next moment. Because what I'm about to share will help you understand why some people seem to walk in constant breakthrough while others stay stuck despite their faith. The difference is not favor. The difference is flow. Flow is what happens when there's no internal resistance, when your beliefs align with God's promises, when your actions match your prayers, when your giving reflects your trust. Flow is effortless, not because it requires no action, but because the action feels natural, like breathing. You don't force breath, you allow it. The same is true with divine flow. You don't force provision. You position yourself where provision flows. You don't force open doors. You walk toward the ones God is opening. You don't force breakthrough. You remove the blockages that have been stopping it. And the biggest blockage, for most people, is the belief that they have to do it all themselves. That if they don't control every outcome, everything will fall apart. But control is the opposite of trust, and trust is what activates heaven's movement. My dearest child, I know you've been holding on tightly, tightly to relationships, tightly to plans, tightly to timelines. But what if the breakthrough you're waiting for requires you to open your hands, not to lose what you're holding, but to make room for what's trying to reach you? This is one of the hardest lessons in faith, the lesson of release. Release doesn't mean giving up. Release means giving over, giving situations over to God instead of trying to manage them yourself. Giving relationships over to divine order instead of forcing alignment. Giving outcomes over to heaven's timing instead of demanding immediate results. And when you release, something miraculous happens. Peace returns. Clarity increases. Doors open without you having to bang on them. People align without you having to convince them. Provision flows without you having to manipulate it. This is flow. And flow is what heaven wants to restore to your life right now. Stay with me. As flow begins to return, you'll notice something else shifting. Your prayers will change. They'll become less desperate and more declarative, less begging and more believing, less striving and more receiving. This shift is crucial because desperate prayers often come from a place of lack, and lack attracts more lack, but prayers from a place of trust attract provision. Not because God plays favorites, but because trust removes resistance. And where there's no resistance, heaven moves freely. Now, here's where partnership deepens. As you begin to experience flow, you'll feel a natural desire to give back, not out of obligation, but out of overflow. This is how seed faith operates in its purest form. You don't sow to get. You sow because you've already received. You don't give to manipulate outcomes. You give because you recognize that what flows through you is greater than what you could hold onto. And when you give from that place, from overflow rather than obligation, something powerful happens. The flow increases. Not because your gift earned more favor, but because your heart posture created more capacity. Capacity is everything. You can't receive what you don't have room for. And room is created through release, through trust, through generosity. This is why people who give freely, even when it doesn't make logical sense, often experience provision in ways that defy explanation. They've tapped into a spiritual principle that most people miss. The principle of circulation. What you hold stagnates, what you release circulates, and circulation brings life. My beloved child, I'm not telling you this to pressure you into giving. I'm telling you this to help you understand how heaven operates. Heaven is not transactional. Heaven is relational. And relationship requires trust, vulnerability, and generosity. When you trust God with your resources, you're saying, I believe you're bigger than my budget. When you're vulnerable enough to admit you don't have it all together, you're saying, I need you more than I need control. When you're generous, even in seasons of waiting, you're saying, I believe provision is coming. And I'm not going to let fear stop me from participating in what you're doing. These declarations matter. They shift atmospheres. They break agreements with scarcity. They activate promises that have been dormant. Don't scroll. Stay right here. Because in the next part, I'm going to show you what true alignment looks like and how to recognize when you've stepped into it. Alignment is not a feeling. Alignment is a frequency. And when you're in alignment, everything changes. You've heard the phrase, when it rains, it pours. Most people apply that to hardship, but the principle works both ways. When breakthrough comes, it often comes in waves. Not one door opens, but several. Not one relationship aligns, but multiple. Not one opportunity appears, but many. This isn't coincidence. This is momentum. And momentum builds when alignment is present. But here's what most people don't realize. Alignment isn't something you achieve once and maintain forever. Alignment is something you return to daily, through prayer, through rest, through obedience, through generosity, through stillness. Every choice you make either keeps you aligned or pulls you slightly off course. This is why Jesus often withdrew to pray, not because he lacked faith, but because alignment requires intention, especially in seasons of acceleration. Right now, your life is about to accelerate. Things that have been slow are about to speed up. Answers that have been delayed are about to arrive. Provision that felt far off is about to show up. But if you're not aligned, acceleration will overwhelm you instead of bless you. This is why this moment matters so much. This isn't just about receiving a message. This is about recalibrating your alignment so that when the breakthrough comes, you're ready to steward it. Stewardship is what determines whether breakthrough becomes a moment or a lifestyle. Stay with me. There's a story in the Bible about a widow who had nothing left but a jar of oil. A prophet told her to gather empty vessels and pour. As long as she had vessels, the oil kept flowing. But when the vessels ran out, the oil stopped. The miracle wasn't in the oil. The miracle was in the capacity. She could only receive as much as she had room for. My beloved child, heaven is about to pour into your life. But the question is, do you have room? Have you cleared out old agreements, toxic relationships, limiting beliefs, fear-based thinking? Or are you still holding on to things that are taking up space, meant for something greater? This is where discernment and decision come together. Discernment shows you what needs to go. Decision gives you the courage to release it. And release creates capacity for the new. You may feel prompted right now to release something. A grudge, a relationship, a mindset, a habit. Don't ignore that prompting. That's heaven helping you create room. And when you create room, heaven fills it. Not always immediately, but intentionally. This is the process. Awareness, agreement, alignment, action, and sustained alignment requires continual action. Not frantic action, but faithful action. Faithful action looks like showing up in prayer even when you don't feel like it. It looks like giving even when your budget feels tight. It looks like trusting even when circumstances haven't shifted yet. It looks like obeying even when the instruction doesn't make sense. This kind of faithfulness is what separates those who experience momentary breakthrough from those who walk in sustained blessing. And sustained blessing is what heaven wants for you. Don't you dare miss this next moment, because I'm about to show you how to lock in this alignment so that it doesn't slip away when distractions come. And distractions will come. The enemy doesn't give up just because you've had a moment of clarity. If anything, he doubles down. But you don't have to fear that. You just have to be prepared. Preparation looks like establishing rhythms. Rhythms of prayer, rhythms of rest, rhythms of generosity, rhythms of worship. Rhythms anchor you when emotions fluctuate. When Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, God didn't just deliver them once. He established rhythms, daily manna, Sabbath rest, sacrificial giving. These rhythms kept them aligned even in the wilderness. My dearest child, you're stepping out of a wilderness season. But the habits you establish now will determine whether you thrive in the promised land or just survive there. Heaven is not interested in you barely making it. Heaven wants you flourishing. But flourishing requires foundation, and foundation is built through consistent, faithful action. This is where many people stumble. They experience a breakthrough moment and assume the work is done. But the breakthrough moment is just the beginning. What comes next is the building trust, building capacity, building endurance, building character. And building always requires intentionality. You can't build on accident, you build on purpose. This is why partnership with ministries, with communities, with environments that strengthen your faith matters so much. You're not meant to build alone. You're meant to build in connection. And connection requires investment, not just financial investment, though that's part of it, emotional investment, time investment, spiritual investment. When you invest in what's feeding you, you're not being manipulated. You're being smart. You're recognizing that what nourishes you is worth protecting, and protection often looks like support. Stay right here. In the next part, we're going to talk about the warfare that comes after breakthrough and how to stand firm without falling back into fear, because breakthrough doesn't end warfare. It just changes the battlefield. You're not fighting for breakthrough anymore. You're fighting to protect it, and protection requires a different strategy. My beloved child, there's a principle in Scripture that many people misunderstand. The principle is found in Matthew, where Jesus says, "When an unclean spirit goes out of a man, it passes through waterless places seeking rest, and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to my house from which I came. And when it comes, it finds the house empty, swept, and put in order. Then it goes and brings with it 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of that person is worse than the first." This isn't meant to scare you. This is meant to prepare you, because deliverance without discipleship leads to relapse. Breakthrough without building leads to backsliding. Freedom without fortification leaves you vulnerable. Right now, you're experiencing breakthrough. Clarity is coming. Blockages are breaking. Old agreements are being revoked. But what you do after this moment determines whether this becomes transformation or just another emotional high that fades when the feeling leaves. Heaven is not just breaking things off of you. Heaven is preparing to fill you with something greater, but you have to stay engaged. You have to keep your house full, full of truth, full of worship, full of community, full of purpose. An empty house, even a clean one, is still vulnerable. This is why so many people cycle through breakthroughs and setbacks. They experience freedom, but don't fill the space with anything substantial. And eventually, old patterns creep back in, not because the breakthrough wasn't real, but because it wasn't sustained. Sustaining breakthrough requires intentionality. And intentionality requires partnership. Partnership with God, partnership with community, partnership with truth. When you partner with a ministry, when you sow into environments that are feeding your spirit, you're not just giving money. You're creating accountability. You're staying connected. You're keeping your house full. This is why generosity is spiritual. It's not about the amount. It's about the agreement that says, I'm not doing this alone. I'm building with others who are building with God. Stay with me. Don't let your mind wander. Because what I'm about to say next could be the difference between sustained victory and recycled struggle. The warfare you're about to face is not the warfare you've known. You're not fighting to get free anymore. You're fighting to stay free. And staying free requires vigilance without paranoia. Vigilance is awareness. Paranoia is fear. You can be aware without being afraid. You can guard your heart without closing it. You can protect your peace without isolating yourself. This balance is crucial, and it's learned, not inherited. Jesus modeled this perfectly. He was fully present with people, yet fully protected in his identity. He gave freely, yet he didn't give everyone the same level of access. He loved deeply, yet he maintained boundaries. This is wisdom, and wisdom is what heaven is releasing to you now. Wisdom to know when to engage and when to step back. Wisdom to know who to trust and who to keep at a distance. Wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay silent. Wisdom to know when to give and when to guard. This wisdom doesn't come from fear. It comes from alignment, and alignment comes from staying close to God, close through prayer, close through obedience, close through generosity, close through worship. Closeness is what protects you. Not walls, not suspicion, closeness. When you're close to God, you can sense when something is off. You don't have to analyze it. You just know. That's discernment. And discernment is being sharpened in you right now. My dearest child, as you move forward, you're going to encounter resistance. Not from God, but from forces that don't want you walking in freedom. That resistance might look like sudden doubt, like unexpected financial pressure, like relational conflict, like physical exhaustion. These aren't signs that you're off track. These are signs that you're on the right track and the enemy knows it. This is where most people falter. They interpret resistance as confirmation that they made a mistake. But resistance often confirms you're moving in the right direction. The enemy doesn't waste energy on people who aren't a threat. If you're experiencing resistance, it means you're threatening something in the spiritual realm. And that's actually good news. It means you're no longer stuck. You're moving. And movement attracts opposition. But opposition doesn't mean defeat. It means you're in the fight. And the fight is where faith is proven. Don't you dare miss this next moment. Because I'm about to give you the strategy for standing firm when resistance rises. And this strategy is simple but powerful. The strategy is this: anchor in identity, not in outcomes. When your identity is anchored in who God says you are, outcomes can't shake you. Outcomes will fluctuate. Circumstances will shift. People will disappoint. Plans will change. But if your identity is rooted in Christ, none of that moves you. This is what Paul meant when he said, "I have learned to be content in all circumstances." He wasn't content because everything went his way. He was content because his identity wasn't tied to his circumstances. It was tied to Christ. My beloved child, this is the key to sustained victory. Not perfect circumstances, but unshakable identity. And identity is fortified through relationship. Relationship with God. Relationship with truth. Relationship with community. When you're relationally connected, you don't have to figure everything out alone. You have support. You have accountability. You have perspective. This is why isolation is so dangerous. Isolation makes you vulnerable to lies, but community keeps truth in front of you, and truth is what sustains freedom. As you step into your next season, stay connected. Don't isolate. Don't withdraw. Don't try to prove you can do it alone. Partner, support, engage. And when you feel prompted to give, to sow, to invest in what's feeding you, don't hesitate. That prompting is holy. It's your spirit recognizing alignment and wanting to stay connected to it. Generosity keeps your heart soft. It keeps your faith active. It keeps you engaged in what God is doing. And engagement is what protects breakthrough. Stay right here. We're almost to the end, but this final part is crucial, because everything we've walked through comes down to one decision. A decision only you can make, and that decision will determine your next 10 years. My beloved child, we've covered a lot. We've talked about agreements and blockages. We've talked about alignment and flow. We've talked about breakthrough and protection. We've talked about partnership and stewardship. But all of this comes down to one question. Will you respond? Response is what activates everything heaven has prepared. You can have clarity and never act on it. You can have breakthrough and never steward it. You can have provision and never position yourself to receive it. Knowledge without action is just information, but knowledge with obedience becomes transformation. Right now, you're standing at a threshold, On one side is everything familiar, the patterns you know, the cycles you've repeated. The comfort of predictability, even if that predictability has been painful. On the other side is unknown territory, new patterns, new rhythms, new relationships, new provision, new purpose. The unknown is scary, but the unknown is also where miracles live, and heaven is inviting you to step into the unknown, not recklessly, but faithfully. Faithfully means you don't have to see the whole path, you just have to take the next step. And the next step is always obedience to what God is showing you right now. For some of you, that step is breaking an agreement with fear. For some of you, that step is ending a relationship that's draining you. For some of you, that step is starting something you've been putting off. For some of you, that step is giving in a way that feels uncomfortable but right. For some of you, that step is simply saying yes to God's voice again after a long season of silence. Whatever your step is, take it. Don't wait for perfect clarity. Don't wait for all the answers. Don't wait for fear to completely leave. Just take the step and watch what heaven does with your obedience. My dearest child, I want to say this clearly one last time. Heaven is not closing on you. Heaven is opening for you. This moment, this message, this clarity, it's all an invitation to partner with what God is doing, an invitation to step into alignment, an invitation to receive what's been waiting. But invitations require response, and your response matters, not because it earns you anything, but because it positions you for everything. So here's my final question. Will you respond? Will you take the step God is showing you? Will you break the agreement that's been holding you back? Will you release what's taking up space? Will you give in a way that honors the flow you're stepping into? Will you stay connected to truth even when it feels uncomfortable? Will you trust that this moment, this awareness, this clarity is not manipulation but mercy? The choice is yours. Heaven is not forcing you. Heaven is inviting you, and this invitation is sacred. Don't let fear talk you out of it. Don't let doubt delay you. Don't let distraction pull you away. Stay present, stay engaged, stay obedient. And watch what God does when partnership and obedience align. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too far gone. You are right on time for this moment. And this moment is the beginning of everything you've been praying for. Trust it, receive it, respond to it. And may heaven meet you in ways that leave no doubt that God is faithful, present, and deeply committed to your flourishing. You are loved. You are seen. You are chosen. Now walk like it. But before you go, before you step away from this moment, there's something else I need you to understand. Something that will anchor everything we've just walked through. Something that will keep you steady when the initial fire of this revelation begins to settle into the rhythm of daily life. My beloved child, transformation is not a single moment. It's a series of choices, and the choices you make in the next 72 hours will set the trajectory for the next 72 days. The next 72 days will shape the next 72 weeks. And momentum, once established, creates patterns that carry you further than willpower ever could. This is why the enemy fights hardest right after breakthrough, not during the struggle, but after it. Because he knows that if he can get you to delay obedience, doubt will creep back in. If he can get you to rationalize away the conviction you feel right now, comfort will override courage. And if he can get you to return to old rhythms before new ones are established, this entire moment becomes just another emotional experience that fades with time. But you're not going to let that happen. I can feel it in your spirit. There's a determination rising, a quiet resolve that says, not this time. This time I'm following through. That resolve is sacred. Guard it. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. Don't let logic diminish it. Don't let fear delay it. When God gives you a now word, now is when you respond, not tomorrow, not when it feels more convenient, not when you've figured out all the details. Now, stay with me for just a little longer. Because what I'm about to share will help you understand why immediate obedience carries more weight than delayed perfection. In the Book of Kings, There's a story about Naaman, a powerful commander who had leprosy. He traveled far to find the prophet Elisha, hoping for a dramatic healing. But when he arrived, Elisha didn't even come out to meet him. Instead, he sent a messenger with simple instructions. Go wash in the Jordan River 7 times. Naaman was furious. He expected something spectacular. He expected the prophet to wave his hand, call on God, make a show of it. But the instruction was too simple, too humbling, too ordinary. And he almost left without his healing because he was offended by the simplicity. But his servants reasoned with him. If the prophet had asked you to do something great, wouldn't you have done it? Why not do this simple thing? And Naaman obeyed. He dipped in the river 7 times, and his flesh was restored like that of a young child. The miracle wasn't in the river. The miracle was in the obedience. My dearest child, God is asking you to do something simple right now. It might feel too small to matter, too ordinary to carry weight. But simplicity doesn't diminish significance. Sometimes the simplest acts of obedience unlock the greatest miracles. And right now, your simple act might be supporting this ministry. It might be giving an amount that feels sacrificial. It might be making a decision you've been avoiding. It might be having a conversation you've been delaying. It might be setting a boundary you've been too afraid to enforce. Whatever it is, it's simple, but it's significant. And your obedience will release something in the spiritual realm that struggle never could. Don't you dare miss this next moment. Because there's a dimension of blessing that only comes through partnership. And partnership is what I want to talk about now. When you sow into a ministry, when you support a work that's feeding your spirit, you're not just giving financially, you're entering into covenant. Covenant is a word we don't use much in modern language, but it's one of the most powerful concepts in Scripture. Covenant means binding agreement. It means mutual commitment. It means we're in this together. When Abraham entered covenant with God, it wasn't one-sided. God made promises, but Abraham had responsibilities, and both parties honored their part. That's how covenant works. It's relational, not transactional. When you support a ministry from a place of covenant, you're saying, I believe in what God is doing here, and I want to be part of it. And when you take that posture, you don't just benefit from the teaching. You benefit from the anointing. You benefit from the prayers. You benefit from the spiritual warfare being waged on behalf of everyone connected. This is why biblical community was never optional. It was essential, because isolated believers are vulnerable believers, but connected believers are fortified believers. My beloved child, I know some of you are feeling resistance right now. A voice is whispering, this is just manipulation. They're just trying to get your money. And I want to address that directly because that voice is not discernment. That voice is cynicism. And cynicism keeps you from receiving. Yes, there are ministries that manipulate. Yes, there are people who use fear and guilt to extract money. But don't let the counterfeit keep you from the authentic. Don't let past hurt keep you from present blessing. This moment is not about manipulation. This is about partnership. And partnership requires investment, not just from the ministry into you, but from you into the ministry. That's how relationship works. It's reciprocal. When you give, you're not being taken advantage of. You're taking your place in the flow of kingdom economy. And kingdom economy operates differently than worldly economy. In the world, you get what you earn. In the kingdom, you receive what you believe. In the world, you hoard to have more. In the kingdom, you release to receive more. In the world, you protect to stay safe. In the kingdom, you give to stay aligned. This is why Jesus said, give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. He wasn't talking about karma. He was talking about flow. When you give from a place of faith, you open channels for heaven to give back. Not always in the same form, but always in the right measure. Stay right here, because I'm about to show you what happens when covenant partnership is activated. And this could change everything about how you approach your relationship with God, with community, with provision. When you enter covenant partnership through giving, several things happen simultaneously in the spiritual realm. First, you break agreement with a poverty mindset. Poverty mindset says, if I give, I'll have less. Kingdom mindset says, when I give, I create room for more. Every time you give, especially when it feels sacrificial, you're declaring, I trust God more than I trust my bank account. And that declaration matters. It shifts something spiritually. It tells heaven, I'm ready for increase because I'm not controlled by fear of decrease. Second, you activate the principle of multiplication. Jesus took 5 loaves and 2 fish, blessed them, broke them, and gave them away. And they multiplied. He didn't hoard them. He released them. And in the releasing, multiplication happened. The same principle applies to your finances, your time, your gifts, your influence. What you hold stagnates. What you release multiplies, not always immediately, not always visibly, but always eventually. Third, you align yourself with generational blessing. In Scripture, generosity often unlocked blessings that went beyond the individual. When Abraham gave, his descendants benefited. When David gave, Solomon inherited wealth. When you give, you're not just affecting your present, you're affecting your future, your children's future, your lineage. Generosity creates a legacy that outlives you. This is why the enemy fights so hard to keep you from giving. Because he knows that generosity breaks curses and activates blessings that span generations. My dearest child, I'm not telling you this to pressure you. I'm telling you this to empower you. Because when you understand what's happening spiritually when you give, giving becomes an act of warfare, not obligation. You're not giving because you feel guilty. You're giving because you recognize that generosity is a weapon against fear, a weapon against lack, a weapon against doubt. And every time you give in faith, you're declaring victory over the lies that say you'll never have enough. Don't scroll. Stay with me. Because in this final section, I want to address something that many people struggle with. The question of how much. How much should I give? And I want to answer that gently but clearly. The amount is between you and God. There's no magic number. There's no formula that guarantees blessing. What matters is not the amount. What matters is the posture. Are you giving from fear or from faith? Are you giving from obligation or from overflow? Are you giving to manipulate outcomes or to honor alignment? The widow in Scripture gave 2 coins. It was all she had. But Jesus said she gave more than everyone else because she gave from her poverty, not from her abundance. She gave what cost her something. My beloved, God is not looking for your abundance. He's looking for your availability. He's not impressed by large sums from people who'll never miss it. He's moved by sacrificial gifts from people who trust him enough to give what they can't afford to lose. So here's my encouragement. Don't give what's easy. Give what's meaningful. Give an amount that requires you to trust God. Give an amount that makes you a little uncomfortable. Give an amount that says, I'm serious about this partnership. And then watch what God does with your obedience. Watch how doors begin to open. Watch how provision begins to appear in unexpected ways. Watch how peace begins to settle in areas that were once filled with anxiety. This is not about earning blessing. This is about positioning yourself to receive what's already been prepared. And sometimes positioning requires movement. Movement in your giving. Movement in your obedience. Movement in your faith. Right now, as you sit here, heaven is watching. Not to judge you, not to condemn you if you don't respond, but to celebrate when you do. Because every act of obedience is celebrated in heaven. Every step of faith is honored. Every seed sown in good soil is marked for harvest. My beloved child, your harvest is coming, not because you've been perfect, not because you've earned it, but because God is faithful, and faithfulness doesn't depend on your performance. It depends on his character. But here's the truth. Harvest comes to those who sow. And if you haven't been sowing, you've been limiting your harvest, not because God is withholding, but because you haven't been participating. Participation is what opens the windows of heaven. and those windows are about to open over your life. But it requires one more step, one more act of faith, one more moment of obedience, and that moment is now. Don't wait, don't hesitate. Don't let another second pass where you're sitting on the sideline of your own breakthrough. Get in the game, take your position, make the move God is asking you to make. Whether that's financial, relational, or spiritual, do it now, because now is when momentum is highest. Now is when conviction is strongest. Now is when heaven is positioned to move. And if you delay, that momentum will fade. That conviction will weaken. And you'll find yourself right back where you started, wondering why nothing ever changes. But it doesn't have to be that way. Not this time. This time you're going to follow through. This time you're going to respond. This time you're going to partner with heaven in a way that creates lasting transformation. I believe that about you. More importantly, God believes that about you. He wouldn't have brought you to this moment if he didn't believe you were ready. So prove him right. Step into the fullness of what he's prepared, and watch your life shift in ways you never thought possible. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a partner with heaven. And partnership changes everything. Stay blessed, stay obedient, stay generous. And may the windows of heaven open over your life in ways that leave no room for doubt that God is real, present, and deeply invested in your success. You are loved beyond measure. You are called with purpose. You are equipped for victory. Now go and walk in it. With every step, with every choice, with every act of obedience, you are building a legacy that will outlast you. And that legacy begins today, right now, in this moment. Don't waste it, embrace it, and let heaven meet you in the fullness of your yes.